This is a Hot Wheels McDonald's Happy Meal promotion from the year 2000. It's the McDonald's Hot Rod. It's said to be based upon a 1950 Studebaker wagon. As you can see there, it's a little play-worn, but it's in pretty darn good shape. The McDonald's Happy Meal toys aren't very fancy, and as you can see, there's not a lot of detail to this. But I want to jazz it up a little bit. You take it apart the usual way. It had two posts. There is absolutely no interior on this thing. Other than the body itself, it's all plastic. The engine, as you could see, kind of fought me coming out, and then I realized the glass was actually holding it in, really slightly. And there was also a post holding the glass in. So once I figured that out, it came apart okay. That glass comes back to bite me at the end. It's not hard plastic. It's a weird rubbery kind of plastic. But we'll get back to that a little later. Clean the casting up. It did have some casting lines. They were all buried under that exceptionally thick paint that Hot Wheels puts on these things sometimes. But got it looking pretty good. And I'm keeping this kind of simple, but having fun with it. Like I said, it did have two posts, so I drilled those out after cleaning it up. Forgot to do it right out of the gate, but got the post drilled out, tapped with 256 screws, primered it with gray, I believe it was Duplicolor primer, and hit it with purple. And then because some of the guys were giving me crap on Facebook about my love of lime ice, I thought, well, let me give this a dusting on the front. But when I went to clear coat it, it didn't work out well. So threw it back in the stripper, polished it up for fun because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it. But decided that I was going to reprimer it, hit it with the Ford Ultraviolet Pearl to give it that beautiful purple color, and not dust it with the lime ice. The flat black was for the base. As you can see, the base there is white plastic. The wheels on the back are pretty large, and you barely see them out from under the casting. So even though I take them off here, I do end up keeping those. And you can see they didn't even paint the spokes on them or anything. I do replace the fronts with some nice chrome wheels that I got off eBay. They do, I wanted it to sit a little lower. I was kind of concerned about how low it was going to sit, so I sanded down the base a little bit just to give me a little bit more clearance. Do not do this at home. I was drilling out the back pipes very slowly by hand, holding it in my hand. That's not the way you should drill it, but drilled it out because I'm going to put those little ferrule pipes in there. And there were some little spots on the bumper, so I hit it with the Bondo glazing putty, spot putty. Got that looking good. Then I sent that off to primer. I gauzied the glass. It's a very dark plastic. You do not see anything through it, and that's just as well because, like I said, there's no interior on this thing. But it is, as I mentioned before that, it's not a hard plastic. It's a weird plastic. Not even sure how to describe it exactly, but I gauzied it and let that dry. Set that aside. Since there was no chrome on these back wheels, I thought, well, you don't see much of it, so I'm not going to replace them. I just went over it with the chrome Molotow pin. You can kind of see that's the thick 2mm Molotow pin. I find that so much easier to use than the smaller one. I did go over the bullet nose with the chrome Molotow pin. The slots on the front off camera, I do fill those in with black from a Gundam marker. I kind of sloppily masked the base. You can see I do have it painted flat black at this point. But I'm chroming the bumpers, and there you see the notches cut out for the pipes that I'm going to throw in, and I chrome the front bumper. And yeah, again, the 2mm Molotow pin is fantastic for this stuff. It's so easy to use. The engine was funky. It had a rounded front to it. It had a seam line on the top. It just didn't look good. It was poorly done. So I tried to improve it a little bit. And then I didn't try and drill out the opening in the scoop. I did go over it with the fatter Gundam marker, black marker. And then once that dried, I went around the edges of that with the Molotow chrome pin. And then I went over the top of the engine as well, the top of the scoop that I had sanded that stupid ridge out of. I mean, I wouldn't have had to do that if the ridge wasn't there, because the top shape was okay. It just had a weird rounded face. It's hard to describe. Did the headlights and the taillights just with the simple Sharpie silver marker. And then I do go over the brake lights with the Tamiya red clear off camera. There's those little tiny ferrules that I've used in different builds. I had to cut them down a little bit to get the right length. All I did for that was I put an axle inside of the ferrule just to keep it from flattening out each one, rolled it under an X-Acto knife to cut it, and took off the excess that way. It's a real simple procedure. And a little bit of super glue in those notches I put. And there you have some pretty nice looking exhaust pipes when you're done. There's a subtle request to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Yeah, real subtle, huh? I should do these little pipes more often. They're easy enough to do. I've got a boatload of those ferrules off of not eBay, but Amazon. I thought, what the heck? Let's hit the bottom with the silver Sharpie to add a little detail. And you've seen me do this before. I love throwing license plates on the backs of these cars when I can. This is an old black California license plate design that seemed really appropriate for this car. And they're super tiny decals, but I think they add a lot to it. Now, to explain what happens to me here with the glass, and you'll see me putting this together, but the glass, when I go to pop it in, the back half fits super snugly, and it pops into place. There's a framework around that plastic that pops into the opening. What I didn't realize was it scraped the bottom of the gauzy coat on that back glass. I just didn't pay attention to it when it happened. And then I did need to use the resin pin to glue this. Remember, there's that hole in the top because there was that post. And here you'll see this back half of this glass. You'll see me press it extra hard here to pop it in. What I didn't notice, and if you watch closely, see that rough edge? It did screw up the base of that back edge of the glass. I didn't catch it, stupidly. And now I go to put the resin glue in, put the resin in, and then use the UV little light on the pin to hold it down. This little Bondic pin works great for this kind of thing. These pins show up on Woot every so often, woot.com, which is a discount site, at a really good price. And refills also show up there. So if you're looking for it, that's one place to look to get a deal on it. It's not there all the time, but when it shows up, that's how I got this one in some refills. And there you basically have it. You know, it's I just added some detail to it, and I love the purple color. I really like how the tail lights turned out as well. They worked out really well this time for me. But my one regret on this build is that scrape on the back glass. I tried to touch it up a little bit with a paintbrush with some gauzy to go over it. It did help a little bit, but I don't know. I guess none of these are really perfect. At least none of the ones I do. But I'm trying to get better. And it rolls. There you see the original one. And you can see how that back glass fits in that opening. It just pops in there. And again, it's that weird, stupid, soft plastic. Here you see the end result. I wouldn't mind having this thing full size. I do like the purple color as well. I think it was a good choice. It was interesting when it was dusted. It looks more blue here than it does in person. It has much more of a purple look to it in person. There you can kind of see the rough edge at the bottom of the glass. But the tail lights, the pipes on the back, and the little license plate, I think, look really good. So maybe people will look at that and be distracted. I think the engine looks a little better than it did before, too. And again, you can see on the back wheels here, you really don't see much of them, so you can't tell that they're that funky Hot Wheels original wheel on there. But I hope you like this build. It was fun. It was a quickie. After that last video that I did of the post-apocalyptic bus, that God bless those of you who sat through that video. I know it was long. This one's a lot shorter. So thanks for coming along on these builds with me. Also, thanks a lot to my Patreon members for their support. And thanks everybody for having fun with me on these things. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there. And we'll catch you in the next one.